want to start with a study of Luke and Kittenis, because they did a similar survey on psychedelic transpersonal experience with psychoactive drugs. And they wondered if particular transpersonal experiences are related to particular drugs. And they found a difference between these types of transpersonal experiences. And so we thought, okay, we want to do that again. And we want to enlarge it a bit. So we started to do our own online survey, but we wanted to have a good systematic of transpersonal experiences. So we used that one of Stanislav Grof. There is a short excursus if you don't know who is Stanislav Grof. And he was a pioneer in exploring the psychological effects of LSD. And he found out that the process of psychedelic experiences have 4 stages. The first stage is enlarged aesthetic experiences like seeing color, seeing forms, and so on. Afterwards, you're living through sets of personal experiences, prenatal experiences, and on the top, transpersonal experiences. And he divided them in 2 categories, 2 main categories. These are experiential extension with the framework of objective reality and experiential extension beyond the framework of objective reality. And in the first one, there are temporal extension like time traveling or spatial expansion of consciousness like out-of-body experiences and so on. And in the second category, there are experiences like feeling the oneness of everyone around you and consciousness of a universal mind. And we took these systematic in our online survey. And these, there have a lot smaller categories underneath, so it's about 30 types of transpersonal experiences. So what did we do exactly? We wanted to know the differences and similarities among common entheogens concerning the psychedelic experiences. So which entheogens did we ask about? There was LSD, psilocybin, DMT, ayahuasca, mescaline, ibogaine, MDMA, and cannabis. And we wanted to explore the action spectrum of these specific psychedelics and their effects on the human psyche. So we did an international online survey that was available in German and English. And it was a retrospective questionnaire about the subjective experiences with these substances. And we used mixed methods, so we had open questions and closed questions. And there were over 2,000 people participating on the study, but we only had the 800 ones in the analysis because they really completed the whole questionnaire. And if you had a lot of experiences, you needed to sit there for 1 hour, maybe 2 an hour. Yeah, and it was quite long, so some people might got boring and just leave it. Yeah, 80% of the people were male, so we didn't catch the females. And as you can see, most of the participants did use cannabis and MDMA, also high scored LSD and psilocybin. we had to kick ibogaine because there were only 4 people who told us their experiences. And what's interesting is that we had a high level of education. So more than half of the people had matriculation standard or even a university degree. So what did we do? The age ranged from 18 to 75, yeah. And the participants had, they were asked about their transpersonal experiences concerning the previous mentioned substances, and they had to answer with yes or no. Did you have these experiences with that kind of substance? Yes or no? And afterwards, we did a cluster analysis of the categorization of Grof, and we found these 8 clusters. So we mixed them up new. We had a new systematic afterwards. And the cluster identification contains experiences like identification with plants, with animals, with other people, and so on. And if you have the cluster contact with entities, it's like meeting God, meeting other entities, meeting other worlds, something like that would be referred to this cluster. And here are the results of the transpersonal experiences. I only choose this cluster to show you, because otherwise it would be endless to show you the whole data. And as you can see, the redder the redder it is, the higher the percentage. So encounter with superhuman spiritual entities was scored high with ayahuasca and quite low with cannabis. What's obvious. And as you can see, all kinds of transpersonal experiences can be triggered by all these psychedelic substances, but there is a difference, and they differ when it comes to the amount of the specific transpersonal experiences. And these results are similar to results of Strassman and Luke and Kittenis. And we think that these are necessary for further psychotherapeutic research, because they give a hint for new applications of these substances in psychotherapy. It also backs up with previous clinical studies, and it builds a border between transpersonal experiences and certain psychological issues. So it's like when you see the under categories, like feeling connected with other people. That might be good for someone who's afraid of others, afraid of big spaces, like agoraphobic. That's the right term in English. So that could help in that area. So you can choose it for further research. Yeah, and now Elena is doing the next part.
So we also had a look on the persisting effects of transpersonal experiences. It's known that mystical and transpersonal experiences seem to be associated with persisting effects. A team of researchers at the Johns Hopkins University, for example, found out that the mysticism scores predicted personal well-being, life satisfaction, and positive behavior change. And they also found out that mystical type experiences can lead to an adult personality change. But what kind of persisting effects do psychedelic experiences have in general and were not applicated in a clinical setting? So we asked our participants for that. They were asked about the long-term effects of their psychedelic experiences on their perception of everyday life, the self, the social surrounding, as well as nature and arts. And they were, if they answered with yes, they were asked to describe their experience. The following analysis refers only to the data of LSD and psilocybin. 330 persons had experiences with LSD, 292 had experiences with mushrooms, and 204 persons had experienced both. It was 3,394 codings it was in total, but only 2,293 codings went into the analysis. The rest were trip reports, statements, or other things that were not linked to the certain question. The analysis of the other substances will follow. The reason was economical because of time and sample size. We analyzed them together because they have a quite similar spectrum of transpersonal experiences. And the similarity between the substance was also mentioned by our participants about 200 times. And also they have kind of same indications when used in psychotherapy. Now we come to the results. First, there were the persisting effects on the perception of everyday life. There was the categories that emerged from our data were recognizing beauty and relations, intensified perception and awareness. Here we have an example. I am more present and aware of everyday sensory stimuli and have a greater appreciation for it all. There were also connectedness and changing perspectives in this category. The persisting effects on self-perception were personal development, self-reflection and self-recognition, self-esteem and self-acceptance. Now we come to the persisting effects on the perception of nature. The first one that was mentioned more often was recognizing beauty and relations. Nearly as often was the connectedness with nature. And ecological consciousness and protecting nature. Here we have an example again. I became more interested in change for a greener planet. I became more conscious not to litter and to make an effort to recycle. I have been interested in plant intelligence ever since my mind was opened. Now we come to the persisting effects of the social environment. It's recognizing the human nature and choosing friends. Here we have again some examples. I have become more distant with large groups of friends and have started to focus more on keeping friends good friends. A lot of people I associate with at university are materialist worshippers where social status means the world to them. Some tell it shorter, idiots reject it. Next category that emerged was empathy and sympathy. Also social behavior and acceptance towards others, and criticizing society. The persisting effects on the perception of art affect experiencing art, understanding art, and also the participants mentioned an increased interest in art and creativity. We had also generic changes that were mentioned by the participants, like positive feelings and spirituality. Negatively perceived effects were extremely rare. I think only 2 of this, of all the data mentioned a negative persisting effect. Of course, the study has its limitations. There are subjective retrospective reports. that are not easy to generalize. The dosage and the purity of the substances are unknown. Of course, we have a weird people bias, Western educated, industrialized, rich and democratic. And because only internet users did participate, of course, it was an online questionnaire. And it was very time consuming. We have, like Tamara told us before, an academic bias. But we have also an advantage, a big sample of an elusive population. So we are not finished with analyzing the data yet. Our plans are to make a qualitative analysis of the answers referring to the other substances, MDMA, cannabis, mescaline, and so on. We want to do also comparisons between substances and within subjects. And we are interested in focusing on the link between the spectrum of transpersonal experiences and the persisting effects. And yes, we hope to provide useful information for psychedelic science and counseling. The results seem to be very similar with this from clinical studies and offer also supplementary information. There are a lot of parallels to mindfulness and positive psychology. It seems like the experiences work like a kind of mindfulness booster. And there are certain effects that are characterizing the psychedelic experience itself, like, for example, connectedness, intensified perception, and awareness, seem to be persisting. Yes.
Thanks for your attention.